Odd Taxi is a very good anime. But I wasn't promised a very good anime, I was promised a masterpiece. And Odd Taxi falls quite a bit short of that. Let's talk about why. So, this anime came out back in 2021, and it's one of those anime that you take one look at it and you think, okay, it looks dumb, but people swear it's really, really good, so at some point I gotta watch it, right? Well, it took me 4 years to finally get around to it. Finally gave it a shot, and here's what I think. First of all, let's talk about the quite literal elephant in the room. The art, animation, all the characters being animals, all that, didn't really bother me all that much, surprisingly. What I remember that really turned me off from some of the screen caps I saw was some really squiggly looking art. Turns out that was just from the opening theme. That's the kind of artsy kind of ugliness that I really hate. But the show is more or less just a regular kind of ugly, which I'm actually okay with. So I don't really mind the art style or the animation. I don't like it, but I don't hate it either, so I'm not taking off a lot of points for that. The plot. This is what everyone tried to sell me on. It is extremely good in a lot of ways, but it's also one of those shows that does, let's say, the hard things right, but the easy things wrong. It just fumbles a lot of these easy things for reasons I can't explain. And I'm just going to bring up two of them because I'm going to get back to them later when I talk about the live action show. Early in the show, for example, we find out that there's this rumor that the taxi driver is keeping someone hostage in his apartment. Okay, that's a really interesting part of the plot. Let's try to dig into that. What might be the cause of that? They don't really give you a satisfying explanation for that. They just kind of, at most, sort of suggest that people overheard him talking in his apartment. Okay. Oh, someone's talking in his apartment? What a big surprise. I mean, maybe he could be on the phone. Maybe he could be talking to another human being. Maybe he could just be talking to himself. Why would people jump to, well, he's actually keeping a hostage in there? And why would that be such a huge rumor that would spread all around town? Plus, when you look at this guy's house, it's a standalone house. It's not just, an apartment with stereotypically Japanese thin walls that everyone can hear through. How would anyone hear this guy? He has this low, mumbly voice. It just wasn't satisfying at all, that part of the plot. And another thing, mild spoilers here, but at the very end of the show, the reveal of the killer was extremely weak. And I'm actually not even taking off too many points. I'm taking off some points here, but not too many because it's not the most important thing in this show compared to other murder mysteries, right? Here, the murder is only a small part, and the real meat of the show is seeing how everyone reacts and navigates to the whole chain of events that's spurred on by this murder. But, come on, you gotta do better than that. Everyone wants to know who the killer is. Just kind of like a throwaway detail at the very end. It's pathetic. The very end of the show, actually, the part where, that's left a little bit open, once again, mild spoilers here, but there is kind of an open ending. I don't mind that at all. I think that's perfectly fine. A lot of people are probably pissed off by that. I'm okay with that. So yeah, there were several parts of the plot where they could have tried a little bit harder, or I don't know, maybe just went under the radar for some reason, but so many things that the plot did right, so many of the complicated things where you have all these characters whose plot threads are interweaving even though they don't seem related at first, exactly the kind of plot that I usually go for and I demand of anime. It does all those things really well, but a few of the minor details here and there, a few of the simple things, just drop the ball. But even then, plot overall is extremely good. My biggest complaint with the show is actually the dialogue. This show has a lot of really quippy, witty dialogue going back and forth real fast. I really don't like that, or at least I don't like the way it was done here. It's just kind of annoying for me. And yes, I watched the show in Japanese, so you always have to consider maybe I just had to process a little too much when I'm doing this in my second language. So if this had been a show that I watched in English, maybe I'd have more fun with the dialogue. But I'm thinking of all those old Marvel movies, or maybe new, I don't know. I haven't seen a Marvel movie in a long time. But the way that they're sarcastic all the fucking time, it just gets on my nerves. And that's the kind of vibe I got from this show. Just drop the jokes here and there, have some normal dialogue once in a while, pick and choose the spots where you're going to be funny. And, less is more when it comes to this kind of quippiness, this kind of sarcasm or witty dialogue that some people really go for. I perhaps in the past would have gone for something like this a lot more, but nowadays just prefer a little bit less of that, tone it down a bit. Okay, so that's the TV anime, Double Plus Good. I do strongly recommend it, but it's not as good as everyone promised it was. Now, if you got to the ending, you didn't like the way that the very, very end of the show was kind of open, there's the movie. And the movie, like many anime movies, is mostly recap. The very end, they do kind of put a lid on the show and really tie up that very end if you want to really see that. But it's also done in kind of an interview style. It's not pure recap in the sense that they just chopped up scenes from the original TV anime and threw them together for the movie. They do have new scenes, but those just kind of tell the same story as the anime. So nothing really new there except the very ending. But if you want to see the ending, yeah, you can just probably skip to the end, and you probably will... Well, I don't want to spoil anything, but you might find that satisfying. Okay, now for the more interesting thing, the live action show. You know my usual stance on live action. Never watch it under any circumstances. But this time around, I was really, really curious as to how they would do it because, of course, in the anime, everyone is an animal. What would they do in the live action? Would they just make everyone a human and tell the same story? Would they do CG? Would everyone just wear animal masks? Would everyone have animal-esque names? How would they do it? Well, they just went for the human angle here. Every character is now a human, but they also made some other major changes in some aspects. They also made a lot of other changes to go along with that. For example, the taxi driver himself is no longer the main character. He's not even a major character. He's kind of left off to the side, a very small character in this story. The main characters are actually new here. They're private investigators who are investigating the disappearance of this girl, and the main investigator is actually a former classmate of that girl. The show is 10 episodes long, each episode being standard sort of 22, 23 minutes, so it's shorter than the TV anime, which means you can't get to everything. And on top of that, if you're going to add in new stuff, you have to definitely cut off a lot of the major parts of the TV anime. So there's a lot they couldn't get to here, because I watched the TV anime. I know exactly what's going on in the background, but if you don't know all that, it's hard to see how this would be satisfying as a standalone show if you didn't have all that background from the anime or the movie, I guess. So as a standalone show, if you haven't seen the rest of it, I don't think I could recommend it at all. If you have seen the anime and just want to know more of the show, see it from a few different angles, have a little more background, then it is kind of interesting. So getting back to those two things that I talked about earlier, about the hostage in the apartment, for example. This show actually gives you some more background on that. How could that rumor have spread around town? How could that rumor originally have been found out in the first place? Well, this show does get into that. Another thing is that it gives you a lot more background on the murderer and the murderer's motivations. That's something else that if you've seen the anime and you found that unsatisfying like I did, then the live action is kind of interesting in that regard. So the show, it's good as a supplement to the original TV anime, but as a standalone show, not that good. I would say I would have to give that a single tilde as a final grade. Movie also because it's mostly recap, single tilde. And as I said, the TV show itself, really good with certain flaws. Double plus. Check it out if you can stomach the animation style and the art, everyone being animals. It's a hurdle that you have to get over, but if you can get over it, it's definitely worth it.